There was a parish in South Bend 20 years ago called St. Stephen's Parish, probably about 3 miles away from here, that closed because it was not structurally stable. It wasn't cared for over the years. And so they closed it and knocked it down. It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, at that time, the reason that St. Stephen's was going to close is because it was a building that needed a lot of repairs. It was going to be a very costly project.
And when it closed, the community dispersed. Many didn't go back to church, many changed parishes, but that community can't be recreated. It had a certain dynamic and a certain vibrancy that hasn't really come back since. And that's still mourned by many people too.
It was hard, it was difficult. I mean, growing up in a place that you called home, that actually felt there's roots there, you know? I still feel those roots.
The community where St. Stephen's was has died, sadly. There's not much there anymore because the vibrancy is not there. And so other communities can also be affected in negative ways.
But at the same time, St. Stephen's it was only the church that had a small basement. And the Hispanic community was a growing community. At that time, from what I know, St. Adalbert's have been declining, because St. Adalbert was founded by the Polish community. Sadly, kind of dying out, and a lot of people just moved.
And so we are a shared parish, Polish and Hispanic Latino.
There's still a Polish identity, and we know that is the history, and we try to make that known and remember that, and give credit to that, because without that Polish community, we wouldn't have our church.
And Polish people and the Mexican people are very, very similar in their thoughts regarding family, regarding food, regarding traditions.
Many challenges have come through St. Adalbert's, especially when you're talking about shared parishes. When you come into sharing a new life with someone else, just like in a family or when you get married, there's this learning curve that comes with coming to know someone else because you're living with them. You're living out a faith life.
And what we did, we brought in both English speakers and Spanish speakers together and sat them at the same table. And we of course had translators to have a chance just to speak about all the assets that we have, because often it's easy to look at what we don't have, but to see kind of what all that we have. And that was really the first time in recent memory that we had both English speakers and Spanish speakers, young and old, being together, speaking about the parish.
We also did a study, an economic study. They call it the halo effect. And importantly, to see what would happen to the west side of South Bend if, God forbid, our church failed and we had to close down. Because we're primarily a house of worship, but everything we do stems from being a house of worship. Our schools, our food pantry, our volunteer work.
So we see this as really an economic and cultural center of South Bend as well, that beyond the spiritual aspect, there's a lot more to this place. And everyone sees that and realizes if this place isn't here, this part of South Bend would suffer.
Preserving St. Adalbert's Church preserves the life of the community, the life of the people, not just the building. The building is the structure that houses all that's being done.
That's why there's such a great importance to preserve parishes, churches, communities, congregations as much as possible, because it doesn't only affect the people of the parish, but the surrounding community as well.
Our project for the restoration of St. Adalbert has 4 phases. The first phase is to seal the envelope, which simply means is to make sure the elements do not enter the building, because that's where our problem is arising. Once we accomplish that, that's number 1. The second phase is to address the heating system. We don't have air conditioning right now. The heating system was originally a double boiler system that stems from the late 50s, early 60s. Third phase is to install handicap accessible men's and women's restrooms. Right now we have 1 toilet.
And the last stage will be repair of the inside of the church. We have lots of plaster damage from the water, but also to beautify the church. Take out the carpet. We have beautiful murals in the church we want to clean up. We want to reform the sanctuary space. look at the stained glass windows, do some cleaning, maybe also kind of redoing the pews, redoing the painting and everything too. Really to transform the church, bring it back to its original beauty.
So it's a $14 million project for the total renovation of St Adalbert Church.
This primarily is a place of worship. It's a house of God, and so it's a spiritual center, and it is for this community. It was for the Polish when they arrived here 100 years ago and built this parish, and it is true now for the Hispanic community too. So this project is big on many levels. You know, it's to preserve a spiritual home, but also a kind of a heart of the west side of South Bend. And so that's why it is ambitious. And people do call me crazy. That's okay, you know, because I think it's something we need to do, and we're getting support and help to do it. And of course, God will take it where He wants it to go. So we're very excited for it.
Donate now and help us preserve a community of hope for many.